I woke up at 2:47 a.m. on December 3rd, and I just knew something was about to happen. You know that feeling when the air in your room feels different, heavier somehow? That's what it was like, and what Jesus showed me in the next hour. I'm still shaking as I tell you this. He showed me exactly who he's trying to reach right now, in this very moment, and why most of them will never hear his voice. What I'm about to share isn't just another vision, it's a direct message for someone watching this right now, and Jesus told me specifically that most people will scroll past it without ever knowing it was meant for them. Before we begin, tell me one thing you're praying for right now in the comments. I want to pray with you by name, and if you're a true believer in Christ, if you've genuinely repented, if you have saving faith, if you're truly following Jesus, please subscribe. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you've been taught about how God speaks to us today. I need to know there are believers out there who are awake, watching, and ready. So, let me take you back to that night, December 3rd, just 2 days ago. I'd been filming all day, long hours on set, you know how it is, and I came back to this little rental house I'm staying at during production. It's nothing fancy, just a small place on the outskirts of town, but there's this back porch that overlooks an old vineyard. The vines are dormant now, it being winter and all, just these gnarled, twisted branches reaching up into the darkness like arthritic fingers. I couldn't sleep. I'd been tossing and turning for about an hour, and finally I just gave up. I grabbed a blanket and went out to that porch. It was cold, really cold, the kind of cold that makes your breath visible in little clouds. The sky was absolutely clear. Stars everywhere, and there was this almost full moon casting these long shadows across the vineyard rows. I sat down in this old wooden chair, and honestly, I wasn't even planning to pray. I was just tired. Tired of the work, tired of the pressure, tired of trying to portray someone I'm constantly realizing I don't fully understand. Does that make sense? Like, the more I play this role, the more I realize how little I actually know about Jesus. So I'm sitting there, wrapped in this blanket, staring out at these dead-looking vines, and I just whispered, "Jesus, I don't even know what to say anymore." And that's when I felt it, this presence. It wasn't dramatic at first, no bright lights, no thunder, just this overwhelming sense that I wasn't alone anymore. The air got even heavier, if that's possible, and I noticed that the shadows from the vineyard had stopped moving, even though there was a breeze. Everything just stopped. Jonathan. I heard my name, and I knew that voice. I've heard it before in other visions, but it never gets less overwhelming. My hands started shaking, and I gripped the arms of that wooden chair so hard I got splinters. "Yes, Lord," I managed to say. "I need you to deliver a message for me." I nodded, even though I wasn't sure he could see me in the natural, but of course he could. He can see everything. "There's someone," he continued, and his voice was so close it was like he was standing right behind me, who almost didn't watch this video. They scrolled past it 3 times. Their thumb hovered over it, and something in them, my spirit in them, said stop. But they kept moving. They're so used to the noise, Jonathan, so used to the constant stream of information and entertainment and distraction, that they've almost lost the ability to recognize my voice. I turned around then, and he was there, standing at the edge of the porch, his form somehow both solid and, I don't know how to describe it, like he was more real than everything else around him. The moonlight seemed to gather around him, but it wasn't reflecting off him, it was coming from him. "Lord," I said, and my voice cracked, "what do you want me to tell them?" He stepped closer, and I could see his face now, not the face I try to portray on screen, the real face. And there was such intensity in his eyes, such urgency. "Tell them I've been trying to get their attention for weeks, months for some of them. Tell them that this moment, right now, as they're watching or reading this, isn't an accident. Tell them I orchestrated this. I made sure this video appeared in their feed. I made sure something about the title caught their eye. I even allowed them to scroll past it multiple times because I knew they'd come back to it." I was crying now. I couldn't help it. "But why, Lord? Why this video? Why this message?" He sat down then, right there on the porch steps, and gestured for me to join him. I left the chair and sat beside him, and I could feel warmth radiating from him despite the December cold. "Because they're at a crossroads," he said quietly, "and they don't even know it. In the next 72 hours, they're going to face a decision. It won't seem like a big decision. It might even seem insignificant. but it's going to determine the trajectory of the next season of their life. My heart was pounding. What kind of decision? That's different for each person watching, he said. For some, it's whether to finally end a relationship I've been telling them to end for months. For others, it's whether to take a step of faith I've been calling them to take. For some, it's whether to forgive someone they've been holding bitterness against. For others, it's whether to finally deal with a sin they've been hiding, thinking no one knows about it. He paused, and the weight of his words settled over me like a physical thing. But here's what they all have in common, he continued. They've been asking me for a sign. They've been praying, God, just show me what to do. Give me a clear answer. Make it obvious. And I've been answering them, Jonathan. I've been speaking to them in that still, small voice. I've been giving them promptings, nudges, that sense of knowing in their spirit, but they keep dismissing it. They keep waiting for something more dramatic, more obvious, more convenient. I thought about that for a moment, watching the dormant vineyard stretch out before us. So this video, this is you being more obvious? He smiled then, but it was a sad smile. This is me meeting them where they are. This is me loving them enough to interrupt their scrolling, their distraction, their comfortable avoidance of what they already know I'm asking them to do. He stood up and walked to the edge of the porch, looking out over the vineyard. Do you know why I love vineyards, Jonathan? I shook my head. Because they look dead for months. Completely dead. People who don't know better would look at these vines right now and think they're finished, that nothing will ever grow from them again. But the vineyard keeper knows better. He knows that all through this dormant season, there's life happening underground. The roots are deepening, strengthening, preparing for the next season of fruit. He turned back to me. That's what I'm doing in the lives of my people right now. It's December 2025, and so many of them feel like they're in a dead season. They feel like nothing's happening, like I'm not moving, like their prayers are hitting the ceiling. But I'm working underground. I'm deepening roots. I'm preparing them for a season of fruitfulness they can't even imagine yet. But, he continued, and his voice got more serious, they have to cooperate with me. They have to stop resisting the pruning. They have to stop scrolling past my voice. They have to stop dismissing the promptings of my spirit as just their own thoughts or feelings. I stood up and joined him at the edge of the porch. Lord, how will they know? How will they know if it's really you speaking? He looked at me with such compassion. They already know, Jonathan. That's the problem. Deep down, in that place where my spirit connects with their spirit, they already know exactly what I'm asking them to do. They're just afraid of what it will cost them, afraid of what people will think, afraid of stepping out of their comfort zone, afraid of being wrong. The wind picked up then, rustling through those dormant vines, and I heard it, like a whisper carried on the breeze, thousands of voices, maybe millions, all saying the same thing. Is this really you, God? Is this really you? Do you hear that? I asked. I always hear it, he said softly. It's the sound of my people second-guessing my voice. It's the sound of them talking themselves out of obedience. It's the sound of them choosing comfort over calling. He turned to face me fully then, and placed both hands on my shoulders. Here's what I need you to tell them. Here's the message I need you to deliver. If they're watching this right now, if something made them stop scrolling and pay attention, that's me. That's my voice. That's my spirit saying, this is for you. And whatever that thing is that came to their mind in the last few minutes, that decision, that step of faith, that person to forgive, that sin to confess, that relationship to end, that calling to pursue, that's what I'm asking them to do. But Lord, I protested, what if they're wrong? What if they think you're saying something but it's just their own thoughts? His grip on my shoulders tightened slightly. Jonathan, do you know how many people use that excuse to avoid obeying me? What if I'm wrong, they say. But here's what they're really saying. What if I'm right, and I actually have to do this hard thing? They're not afraid of being wrong. They're afraid of being right. That hit me like a punch to the gut. How many times had I done exactly that? How many times had I felt a clear prompting from the Holy Spirit and then talked myself out of it by questioning whether it was really Him? Tell them this, he said, and his voice took on that tone of authority that makes everything in you want to stand at attention. If they're truly my sheep, they know my voice. I said that myself when I walk the earth. My sheep hear my voice, not might hear or sometimes hear. They hear it. The problem isn't that they can't hear me. The problem is that they won't obey what they're hearing. He released my shoulders and walked back toward the vineyard, and as he did, something incredible happened. The vines started to change. Right before my eyes, they began to bud. Tiny green shoots appeared on those dead-looking branches, and then leaves, and then, impossibly because it was the wrong season, grapes began to form and ripen. This is what I want to do in their lives, he said, gesturing to the transformed vineyard. This is the fruitfulness I have planned for them. But they have to let me do the work. They have to stop scrolling past my voice. They have to stop dismissing my promptings. They have to stop waiting for a more convenient time to obey. I was weeping openly now, watching this impossible vineyard bloom in the middle of winter. When, Lord, when do they need to respond? He looked at me with such love, such patience, but also such urgency. Now, Jonathan, right now, this moment, not tomorrow, not next week, not when they feel more ready or more spiritual or more certain. Now. The scene began to fade then, the supernatural vineyard slowly returning to its dormant state, and I found myself back in that wooden chair, wrapped in my blanket, shivering from more than just the cold. But I wasn't alone. I could still feel his presence, and I heard his voice one more time, softer now, but no less clear. Tell them I love them too much to let them keep scrolling past their destiny. I didn't sleep at all the rest of that night. I mean, how could I? I sat on that porch until the sun came up, watching the real vineyard, the dormant winter vineyard, and thinking about what Jesus had shown me. And honestly, I kept arguing with him in my mind. You know how you do that sometimes, like, Lord, are you sure about this? Are you sure people will receive this message? Are you sure I'm the right person to deliver it? But then December 4th came, and that evening, last night, as I'm recording this, he came back, and what he showed me, it explained so much about why we miss his voice, why we keep scrolling, why we stay stuck in these dormant seasons when he's ready to bring breakthrough. I was back on that same porch around 8 p.m. It was even colder than the night before, and there was this fog rolling in from somewhere, settling low over the vineyard like a blanket. I'd been thinking all day about the message, about who might be watching this, about what decision they might be facing, and I kept coming back to this question, why? Why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we scroll past God's voice? I was praying, well, more like wrestling with God, if I'm honest, when I felt him there again. This time I didn't turn around. I just knew. You have questions, he said. It wasn't a question, just a statement. Yeah, Lord, I do, I said, staring out at that fog-covered vineyard. I don't understand why it's so hard for us, why we can't just hear you and obey, why we complicate it so much. Stand up, he said. I want to show you something. I stood, and suddenly the porch, the vineyard, everything around me began to shift. It's hard to explain, but it was like reality became layered. I could still see the physical vineyard, but I could also see something else, something more real, somehow. It was like looking at one of those images where if you stare at it long enough, a 3D picture emerges. And what emerged from that fog-covered vineyard was a scene that made my blood run cold. I saw people, hundreds of them, thousands maybe, all standing in the vineyard rows, all holding their phones, and they were scrolling. Every single one of them, just scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. Their faces were lit by the blue glow of their screens, and their expressions were empty, not peaceful, not content, just empty. Like they were there, but not really there. Lord, what am I seeing? I whispered. This is my church, he said, and there was such grief in his voice. This is my bride. Look closer, Jonathan. Look at what they're scrolling past. I stepped off the porch, or at least it felt like I did, and moved closer to the nearest person. It was a woman, maybe in her 50s, and as I watched her scroll, I could see what was on her screen, but I could also see something else, like a transparent overlay, showing me what was really happening in the spiritual realm. Every few seconds, a notification would appear on her screen, but these weren't normal notifications. They were glowing, pulsing with light, and I somehow knew they were from him. They were God trying to get her attention. Messages like, call your sister, forgive your husband, That thought you just had about changing careers, that was me. Stop and pray right now. But she scrolled past every single one. Sometimes her thumb would hesitate, hover over the notification for a split second, and I'd see her face flicker with recognition, like some part of her knew it was important. But then she'd keep scrolling, back to the feed, back to the endless stream of content. She's been asking me for direction for 6 months, Jesus said, standing beside me now. 6 months, Jonathan. She prays every morning. God, show me what to do about my marriage. Show me what to do about my job. Show me your will for my life. And I've been answering her. Every single day, I've been sending her these promptings, these nudges, these clear directions. But she's so addicted to the scroll, so conditioned to consume content that she can't recognize my voice anymore. I felt sick. Does she have any idea? Part of her does, he said. That's why she keeps praying the same prayers. Deep down, she knows she's missing something. She knows there's a disconnect. But she's convinced herself that when I really want to speak to her, it'll be more obvious, more dramatic. She's waiting for a burning bush, Jonathan, while I'm sending her notifications every day. He gestured to the rest of the people in the vineyard. Look at them. Really look. I did. And as I moved through the rows, I saw the same pattern repeated over and over. A young man in his 20s, scrolling past divine promptings to end a relationship that was pulling him away from God. An older man, scrolling past repeated urgings to reconcile with his adult son. A middle-aged woman, scrolling past clear direction to start the ministry she'd been dreaming about for years. But here's what really got me, and I'm tearing up again just thinking about it. Every single one of them had recently watched or read something about hearing God's voice. I could see it in their recent history. Videos titled, How to Hear God Speak. Articles about recognizing God's voice. Sermons about knowing God's will. They're consuming content about hearing my voice, Jesus said, while simultaneously scrolling past my actual voice. Do you see the tragedy in that, Jonathan? I did. Oh God, I did. And I realized I'd done the same thing. How many times had I watched a video about spiritual disciplines while ignoring the prompting to actually practice them? How many times had I read about obedience while disobeying a clear directive from the Holy Spirit? Why do we do this? I asked, my voice breaking. Why do we make it so complicated? Jesus walked ahead of me through the vineyard, and as he passed each person, they'd pause in their scrolling for just a moment, like they sensed something, but then they'd go right back to it. Because the enemy has convinced them that my voice should feel different than it does, he said. He's convinced them that hearing from me should be this mystical, overwhelming experience. So when I speak to them in that still, small voice, when I give them a simple prompting, a gentle nudge, a quiet knowing, they dismiss it. They think, that's just me. That's just my own thoughts. That can't be God. He stopped and turned to face me. But that's exactly how I speak to most of my children, most of the time. Not in earthquakes and fire, but in whispers. Not in dramatic visions, but in gentle promptings. Not in burning bushes, but in that sense of knowing that comes when my spirit connects with their spirit. The fog was getting thicker now, and I noticed something else. The people who had been scrolling the longest, who had dismissed the most notifications, were starting to fade. Not disappear exactly, but become less substantial, like they were slowly becoming part of the fog themselves. What's happening to them? I asked, alarmed. They're becoming numb, he said quietly. Every time they scroll past my voice, every time they dismiss a prompting from my spirit, every time they choose the feed over my leading, they become a little less sensitive to me. The connection weakens, not because I've moved away. I never move away from my children, but because they've trained themselves not to hear me. He walked over to one of the fading figures, a man who looked to be in his 40s. This one used to hear me clearly. 5 years ago, he was so sensitive to my spirit. He'd feel a prompting to pray for someone, and he'd do it immediately. He'd sense my direction about a decision, and he'd obey without question. But then he got a smartphone. Then he discovered social media. Then he started filling every quiet moment, every moment when I used to speak to him, with scrolling. Jesus reached out as if to touch the man's shoulder, but his hand passed right through him. Now he's so numb that even when I shout, he barely hears a whisper. And he wonders why he feels distant from me. He wonders why his prayer life feels dry. He wonders why he can't sense my presence like he used to. I was crying now because I saw myself in that man. I saw how many times I'd filled quiet moments with my phone instead of with prayer. How many times I'd chosen to scroll instead of sit in silence and listen for God's voice. Lord, I said, how do we fix this? How do we get back to hearing you clearly? He smiled then, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. That's exactly what I want to talk about. That's why I'm having you share this message, because there is a way back. There is hope. But it requires something most of my people aren't willing to do. The scene shifted again, and suddenly we were in a different part of the vineyard. This section wasn't covered in fog. The air was clear here, crisp and clean, and I could see stars overhead, and there were people here too. But they weren't scrolling. They were kneeling. They were praying. They were sitting in silence with their eyes closed. Some had their hands raised. Some had their faces to the ground, but none of them had their phones out. These are the ones who stopped scrolling, Jesus said, and there was such joy in his voice. These are the ones who heard my call, some through a video just like this one, and they made a decision. They said, enough. I'm not going to miss your voice anymore. I'm not going to scroll past my destiny anymore. I walked among them, and I could see the difference immediately. Their faces weren't empty like the others. They were alive, alert, present. And I could see those same glowing notifications appearing around them, divine promptings, Holy Spirit nudges, but these people were receiving them. They were responding, they were obeying. What did they do differently? I asked. What changed for them? They made a choice, he said simply. They recognized that they had become addicted to the scroll, addicted to the constant stream of content, addicted to the distraction, and they decided that hearing my voice was more important than any of that. He knelt beside a young woman who was praying quietly. This one, she was in the other group just 3 weeks ago. She was scrolling past my voice every day, wondering why she felt so distant from me. Then she watched a video, not unlike this one, and something in her spirit said, "This is for you, this is your moment." And instead of scrolling past it, she stopped, she listened, and she heard me say, "Delete the apps, fast from social media for 30 days. Give me back the time you've been giving to the scroll." And she did it? I asked. She did it, he confirmed, and look at her now. In just 3 weeks, she's more sensitive to my spirit than she's been in years. She's hearing my voice clearly again. She's obeying my promptings. She's experiencing the intimacy with me that she'd been longing for. He stood and gestured to the others in this clear section of the vineyard. Each of them has a similar story. Each of them reached a point where they had to choose. The scroll or my voice, comfort or calling, distraction or direction, and they chose me. I looked back toward the fog-covered section where thousands were still scrolling, still missing his voice, still fading into numbness. But Lord, there are so many more over there. So many who are still stuck. I know, he said, and the grief was back in his voice. That's why I need you to deliver this message. That's why I'm being so direct, so urgent, because time is short, Jonathan. The season is changing. I'm about to do something new, something significant, and I need my people to be able to hear my voice clearly. I need them to be sensitive to my spirit. I need them to be ready to respond when I give them direction. The wind picked up then, blowing through both sections of the vineyard, the foggy section and the clear section, and I heard it again, that sound of millions of voices, but this time they were saying something different. Is it too late? Have I missed too much? Can I still come back? Is it too late for them? I asked, my heart breaking for all those people still scrolling in the fog. Jesus looked at me with such intensity. It's not too late. It's never too late, as long as they're still breathing, still seeking, still asking. But they have to make a choice. They have to stop scrolling. They have to give me their attention. They have to be willing to do whatever it takes to hear my voice clearly again. He walked back toward the porch, and I followed. The vision was starting to fade, the layered reality beginning to separate back into just the physical world. But before it completely disappeared, he turned to me one more time. "Tell them this," he said, his voice carrying that weight of eternity. "Tell them that the very fact they're watching this, the very fact they stopped scrolling to pay attention to this message, is proof that my spirit is still speaking to them. It's proof that they're not too far gone. It's proof that I'm giving them another chance. The fog began to lift from the vineyard, and in that moment, between the vision and reality, I saw something that absolutely wrecked me. I saw a calendar, and dates were being crossed off. Days, weeks, months, just disappearing, and I understood what he was showing me. Time was passing, opportunities were being missed, divine appointments were being scrolled past, and you can't get that time back. "How much time do they have, Lord?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, "Do you remember what I told you last night about the decision they're going to face in the next 72 hours? I nodded. "That decision is a test, Jonathan. It's a test of whether they're really ready to hear my voice and obey it, or whether they're going to keep scrolling, keep dismissing, keep waiting for a more convenient time." The porch solidified beneath my feet, and I was fully back in the physical world, but Jesus was still there, sitting on the steps like he had the night before, looking out at the dormant vineyard. "I don't understand," I said, sitting beside him. "Why a test? Why not just make it easier for them? Make your voice more obvious?" He smiled sadly. "Because easy obedience isn't really obedience, Jonathan. It's just convenience. I'm not looking for people who will follow me when it's easy, when it's comfortable, when it makes sense to everyone around them. I'm looking for people who will hear my voice and obey even when it's hard, even when it costs them something, even when no one else understands." He picked up a small stone from the porch and held it in his palm. "Do you know what most people pray for? They pray for breakthrough, they pray for promotion, they pray for blessing, they pray for the next level, but they won't do the one thing that would release all of that." "What's that?" I asked. "Obey the last thing I told them to do." That hit me like a freight train. How many times had I prayed for God to do something new in my life while ignoring the clear direction he'd already given me? How many times had I asked for the next step while refusing to take the current step? "That's what the test is about," he continued. "It's not about whether they can hear my voice. I've already established that they can. It's about whether they'll obey what they hear. It's about whether they trust me enough to do what I'm asking, even when they don't understand all the reasons why." He stood and walked to the edge of the porch, and I noticed the fog was completely gone now. The vineyard was visible in the moonlight, those dormant vines stretching out in perfect rows. "Here's what I want you to tell them," he said, turning back to me. "In the next 72 hours, and for some of them, it's already started, they're going to have a moment where they feel that prompting, that nudge, that knowing in their spirit. It might be about a conversation they need to have. It might be about something they need to let go of. It might be about a step of faith they need to take. It might be about a sin they need to confess. It might be about forgiveness they need to extend." He paused, letting that sink in. "And in that moment, they're going to have a choice. They can dismiss it, scroll past it, tell themselves they'll deal with it later. Or they can stop, recognize my voice, and obey immediately." "What happens if they dismiss it?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. His expression grew serious. "Then they'll stay in the fog. They'll remain in that dormant season. They'll keep wondering why they feel distant from me, why their prayers feel like they're hitting the ceiling, why nothing seems to be moving in their life, not because I've abandoned them, I never abandoned my children, but because they've chosen the comfort of the scroll over the cost of obedience. And if they obey—" His face lit up, then they step into the clear section of the vineyard. Then they begin to experience the breakthrough they've been praying for. Then they start to see the fruit I've been preparing to bring forth in their life. Then they discover that the dormant season wasn't wasted. It was preparation. The roots were going deep so the fruit could grow strong. I thought about that woman he'd shown me, the one who had deleted her apps and fasted from social media for 30 days. "Lord, is it always about social media? Is that always the issue?" "No," he said. "Social media is just the most common distraction right now, the most prevalent way people fill the silence where I used to speak. But it could be anything. For some, it's work. They've made an idol of their career, and they can't hear me over the noise of their ambition. For others, it's relationships. They're so enmeshed with someone who's pulling them away from me that they can't distinguish my voice from that person's influence. For others, it's entertainment, or hobbies, or even ministry activities." He sat back down beside me. "The question isn't, what's the distraction? The question is, what's keeping you from hearing my voice clearly? And everyone watching this knows the answer to that question. They know exactly what it is. They just don't want to admit it because admitting it means they'll have to do something about it. The temperature had dropped even more, and I pulled my blanket tighter around my shoulders. So what do you want them to do? What's the practical step? First, he said, holding up one finger, I want them to stop right now and acknowledge what I've been trying to tell them. Stop the video if they need to. Put down the phone, get quiet, and ask me, Lord, what have you been trying to tell me that I've been scrolling past? They already know the answer, but I want them to acknowledge it. I want them to say it out loud. He held up a second finger. Second, I want them to identify the distraction. What's been filling the space where my voice should be? What's been keeping them from hearing me clearly? Again, they already know. They just need to be honest about it. A third finger. Third, I want them to make a decision. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when they feel more ready. Right now. What are they willing to sacrifice to hear my voice clearly again? What are they willing to give up to step out of the fog and into the clear? He lowered his hand and looked at me intently. And fourth, this is the most important one. When they feel that prompting in the next 72 hours, when they sense my spirit nudging them about that decision they're going to face, I want them to obey immediately, not after they've thought about it for a week, not after they've consulted with 5 friends, not after they've made a pros and cons list, immediately. That's scary, Lord, I said honestly. What if they make a mistake? What if they think it's you, but it's not? He smiled. Jonathan, do you know how many people use that excuse to avoid obeying me? I told you this last night, but I need to say it again because it's so important. They're not afraid of being wrong. They're afraid of being right. They're afraid that it really is my voice, and they really do have to do this hard thing. He stood and walked to the vineyard's edge one more time. Here's what I want you to tell them about that fear. If they're truly my sheep, if they've truly given their life to me, if my spirit truly lives in them, then yes, they can hear my voice. I said it myself. My sheep hear my voice, not might hear or sometimes hear, they hear it. But what about, I started to say. He held up his hand. I know all the objections, Jonathan. What if it's just my flesh? What if it's the enemy? What if I'm deceiving myself? Here's the truth. If they're genuinely seeking me, if they're genuinely surrendered to my will, if they're genuinely asking me to speak, then I'm not going to let them be deceived. I'm not going to let the enemy hijack their obedience. I'm not going to let their flesh lead them astray. He turned back to me. The real danger isn't in them mistaking my voice. The real danger is in them recognizing my voice and choosing not to obey it. That's what grieves my spirit. That's what keeps them stuck. That's what causes the numbness. The night was getting late. Or early, I guess, since it was well past midnight now. I could see the first hints of dawn starting to lighten the eastern sky. There's more I need to show you, Jesus said. Tomorrow night, the final piece. But for now, I need you to end this part with a question. What question? I asked. Ask them this. What if the reason you stopped scrolling to watch this video is because this is your burning bush moment? What if this is me being as obvious as you've been asking me to be? What if the prompting you're feeling right now, that sense that this message is for you, is exactly what you've been praying for? He started to fade then, the way he always does, but his voice remained clear. Tell them I'm not playing games with them, Jonathan. Tell them I'm not trying to make it hard. Tell them I love them too much to let them keep scrolling past their destiny, and tell them that what I'm about to show you tomorrow night will give them everything they need to pass the test that's coming. And then he was gone, and I was alone on that porch, watching the sun start to rise over the dormant vineyard, knowing that somewhere, someone was watching this right now, and their 72 hours had already begun. The wind picked up then, blowing through both sections of the vineyard, the foggy section and the clear section, and I heard it again, that sound of millions of voices, but this time they were saying something different. Is it too late? Have I missed too much? Can I still come back? Is it too late for them? I asked, my heart breaking for all those people still scrolling in the fog. Jesus looked at me with such intensity. It's not too late. It's never too late as long as they're still breathing, still seeking, still asking, but they have to make a choice. They have to stop scrolling. They have to give me their attention. They have to be willing to do whatever it takes to hear my voice clearly again. He walked back toward the porch, and I followed. The vision was starting to fade, the layered reality beginning to separate back into just the physical world, but before it completely disappeared, he turned to me one more time. I'm not going to lie to you, I was terrified going into last night, December 5th. I knew Jesus was going to come back. I knew he was going to show me the final piece of this message. But after what I'd seen the previous 2 nights, I wasn't sure I could handle anything more. I mean, the weight of it all, knowing that someone watching this is in their 72-hour window, knowing that they're facing a decision that could change everything. I almost didn't go out to the porch. I almost stayed inside, told myself I was too tired, that I needed sleep. But around 11 p.m., I felt this pull. Not a gentle nudge, a pull, like something was physically drawing me outside. So I went. Same porch, same wooden chair, same dormant vineyard stretching out under the December sky. But tonight was different. There was no fog, no cold wind. The air was perfectly still, and the stars. I mean, I've never seen stars like that. It was like someone had turned up the brightness on the entire universe. I sat down, wrapped my blanket around me, and I didn't even have time to say anything before he was there, right there, standing in front of me, and the look on his face, it was different than the previous nights. There was still that intensity, that urgency, but there was also this joy, this anticipation. "Are you ready?" he asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Am I?" He smiled. "You're here. That's what matters. You didn't scroll past the prompting to come outside. You didn't dismiss it. You obeyed." He gestured to the vineyard. "Walk with me." We stepped off the porch together, and as soon as my feet touched the ground between the vine rows, everything shifted. The dormant vines suddenly burst into life, not gradually like before, but instantly. Leaves unfurled, flowers bloomed, and grapes appeared, full and ripe and perfect. The transformation was so sudden, so complete, that I actually stumbled backward. "This is what I want to do," Jesus said, his voice filled with excitement. "This is what I'm ready to do in the lives of everyone who's watching this right now. This is the breakthrough they've been praying for, the fruitfulness they've been longing for, the abundance they've been asking me for." "But Lord," I said, looking at the impossible vineyard around us, "it's December, it's winter, this isn't the season for this." "Exactly," he said, and his eyes were shining. "That's exactly the point, Jonathan. They think they're in a dead season. They think nothing's happening. They think they have to wait for the right time or the right season or the right circumstances. But I'm not limited by seasons. I'm not bound by their timelines. I can bring forth fruit in winter if they'll just cooperate with me." He reached out and picked a cluster of grapes, held them up to the starlight. "Do you know what these represent?" I shook my head. "Everything I've been preparing in their lives during this dormant season. The answered prayers they think I've been ignoring, the breakthroughs they think I've been withholding, the promotions, the healings, the restored relationships, the financial provision, the ministry opportunities, the clarity about their calling, all of it. It's all ready, Jonathan. It's all prepared. I'm just waiting for them to pass the test." "The test," I said, "the decision in the 72 hours. "Yes," he confirmed. "And tonight, I'm going to tell you exactly what that test is really about. I'm going to give you and them the key to passing it. Because I don't want anyone to fail, Jonathan. I don't want anyone to miss this. I'm not trying to trick them or trap them. I'm trying to promote them." We walked deeper into the vineyard, and I noticed something. Some of the vines were more fruitful than others. Some were absolutely loaded with grapes, while others had just a few clusters. "Why the difference?" I asked. "Because the test isn't the same for everyone," he said. "What I'm asking of one person might be different from what I'm asking of another. For some, the test is about surrender, letting go of something they've been clinging to. For others, it's about courage, stepping out in faith to do something they've been afraid to do. For others, it's about forgiveness, releasing someone who hurt them. For others, it's about obedience in a specific area where they've been resisting me." He stopped at a vine that was particularly fruitful, its branches heavy with grapes. "But here's what they all have in common. The test is always about whether they'll value my voice above their comfort, whether they'll trust my wisdom above their understanding, whether they'll obey my prompting above their preferences." I reached out and touched one of the grape clusters. It felt real, solid, warm from the sun that wasn't actually shining. "So, how do they pass? What's the key?" Jesus turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his eyes made me catch my breath. "The key is immediate obedience, not eventual obedience, not partial obedience. Not delayed obedience, immediate obedience. He started walking again, and I followed. Do you know what most people do when they hear my voice? They negotiate, they bargain, they say, "Okay, God, I hear you, but let me just," and then they list all the reasons why they need to wait, or modify what I said, or do it their own way. But that's not obedience, I said, understanding dawning. No, it's not, he confirmed. That's compliance at best and rebellion at worst. True obedience says, "Yes, Lord," and then does exactly what I said, exactly when I said to do it, exactly how I said to do it. We reached a section of the vineyard where the vines were still dormant, even in this vision. They stood out starkly against the fruitful vines around them. "What about these?" I asked. His expression grew sad. "These are the ones who heard my voice but didn't obey. These are the ones who felt the prompting but scrolled past it. These are the ones who recognized the test but chose comfort over calling. Are they lost?" I asked, afraid of the answer. "No," he said quickly. "They're still mine. I haven't abandoned them. But they've missed this season of breakthrough. They've delayed their own promotion. They've postponed the fruitfulness I had ready for them." He touched one of the dormant vines gently. "And the tragedy is, some of them will spend years wondering why nothing's happening in their lives, why they feel stuck, why they can't seem to break through, never realizing that it all came down to one moment, one decision, one test that they failed because they chose comfort over obedience." I felt tears running down my face. "Lord, I don't want that for anyone watching this. I don't want them to miss it." "Neither do I," he said, and I could hear the emotion in his voice. "That's why I'm being so direct. That's why I'm being so specific. That's why I'm giving them this message right now, at this exact moment in time." He led me to the center of the vineyard, where there was a large, ancient-looking vine, bigger and older than all the others. It was absolutely covered in fruit, branches bending under the weight of it. "This," he said, "is what's possible for those who master the art of immediate obedience. This is what happens when someone stops scrolling past my voice and starts responding to it instantly. This is the level of fruitfulness I want for all my children." "How do they get there?" I asked. "How do they become like this?" He smiled. "It starts with the test they're about to face. It starts with that decision in the next 72 hours. Because that decision, that moment when they feel my prompting and choose to obey immediately, that's not just about that one thing I'm asking them to do. It's about establishing a pattern. It's about training their spirit to recognize and respond to my voice. It's about breaking the habit of negotiation and delay." He picked another cluster of grapes from the ancient vine. "When they pass this test, when they obey immediately, something shifts in the spiritual realm. It's like, imagine a door that's been stuck shut for years. This act of immediate obedience is the key that finally opens it. And once it's open, everything I've been preparing, everything I've been holding back until they were ready, it all starts to flow." "But what if they're scared?" I asked. "What if what you're asking them to do terrifies them?" "Then they do it scared," he said simply. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, Jonathan. Courage is obedience in the presence of fear. Some of the most powerful moves of my spirit happen when someone says, 'God, I'm terrified, but I'm going to obey you anyway.'" The scene began to shift again, and suddenly we were back on the porch. But the vineyard in front of us was different now. Half of it was fruitful, alive, abundant. The other half was still dormant, and I could see people in both sections. In the fruitful section, people were harvesting grapes, laughing, celebrating. Their faces were radiant. They were experiencing breakthrough, and you could see it in everything about them. In the dormant section, people were still scrolling on their phones, still distracted, still missing it. And the saddest part was that they were so close to the fruitful section, just a few steps away. But they couldn't see it because their eyes were on their screens. "This is the choice," Jesus said. "This is what the next 72 hours is about. Which section will they be in? Which group will they join?" He sat down on the porch steps, and I sat beside him. "I want to give them something practical now, something specific they can do to prepare for the test, to increase their chances of passing it. Please," I said. "They need that." "First," he said, "I want them to create space for my voice, Starting right now, today, I want them to identify one time each day, just one time, where they would normally scroll, and instead, they sit in silence and ask me to speak. It could be first thing in the morning, during their lunch break, before bed, whenever, but one time each day where they choose my voice over the scroll. That's it? I asked. Just one time? Don't underestimate the power of that one choice, he said. That one daily choice to prioritize my voice over distraction, it's training, it's practice, it's preparing them for the moment when the real test comes and they need to recognize my voice immediately. Second, he continued, I want them to start practicing immediate obedience in small things. When they feel a prompting to pray for someone, do it right then. When they feel nudged to send an encouraging text, send it immediately. When they sense they should give something away, give it that day. These small acts of immediate obedience are building the spiritual muscle they'll need for the bigger test that's coming. He held up a third finger. Third, I want them to identify their biggest distraction and make a decision about it. Not necessarily to eliminate it completely, though for some, that's exactly what I'm asking, but at least to set boundaries around it. If it's social media, maybe it's deleting the apps for a week. If it's TV, maybe it's a fast from entertainment. If it's work, maybe it's setting actual work hours instead of being available 24/7. Whatever it is, they need to prove to themselves, and to me, that they're serious about hearing my voice clearly. And fourth, he said, his voice taking on that tone of authority again, when the test comes, when they feel that prompting, that nudge, that knowing in their spirit about the decision they need to make, I want them to remember this moment. I want them to remember that I told them it was coming. I want them to remember that I said their breakthrough is on the other side of their obedience, and I want them to say yes immediately. The vision was fading now, the fruitful vineyard slowly returning to its dormant winter state. But before it completely disappeared, Jesus stood and placed his hand on my shoulder. There's one more thing I need you to tell them, he said. The most important thing. What's that, Lord? Tell them that I believe in them. Tell them that I wouldn't be giving them this test if I didn't know they could pass it. Tell them that I've been preparing them for this moment, even when they didn't realize it. Tell them that all those hard seasons, all those times of pruning, all those moments when they felt like nothing was happening, it was all preparation for this. His grip on my shoulder tightened. Tell them that I'm not setting them up to fail. I'm setting them up to succeed. I'm setting them up to step into a level of fruitfulness they've never experienced before. I'm setting them up to finally walk in the calling I placed on their life before the foundation of the world. Tears were streaming down my face now. But Lord, what if they've already failed tests like this before? What if they've already missed opportunities? What if they're reading this and thinking, I've blown it too many times? God's probably done with me. His eyes filled with such compassion. Then tell them this: every sunrise is a new mercy. Every breath is another chance. Every moment they're still alive is proof that I'm not done with them yet. Yes, they may have failed tests before. Yes, they may have scrolled past my voice 1,000 times, but I'm giving them another opportunity right now, this moment, this message, this test that's coming in the next 72 hours. He released my shoulder and walked to the edge of the porch one final time. The vineyard was fully dormant again, but somehow it looked different now, like I could see the potential in those bare branches, like I knew what was waiting beneath the surface. The question isn't whether they've failed before, he said, looking out at the vines. The question is whether they'll choose differently this time. The question is whether they've finally gotten tired enough of the dormant season to do whatever it takes to step into breakthrough. He turned back to me, and here's what I want them to understand. This test that's coming, it's not going to look like what they expect. It's not going to be some big, dramatic moment where the heavens open and I speak in an audible voice. It's going to be ordinary. It's going to be simple. It might even seem insignificant. What do you mean? I asked. I mean that when the moment comes, when they feel that prompting about the decision they need to make, their flesh is going to say, this can't be it. This can't be the big test Jesus was talking about. This is too small, too simple, too ordinary. And that's exactly when they need to remember this conversation. That's exactly when they need to remember that I often speak in whispers, not shouts, that I often work through the ordinary, not the spectacular. He came and sat beside me one last time. Let me give you an example. Let's say someone watching this has been praying for breakthrough in their finances. They've been asking me for provision, for a better job, for debt to be canceled. And then, in the next 72 hours, they feel a clear prompting to give away a specific amount of money to someone in need. It might be $50. It might be $500. Whatever the amount, it's significant to them. Now, their logical mind is going to say, that doesn't make sense. I'm praying for more money, not to give away what little I have. But that prompting, that's the test. That's me asking them, do you trust me enough to obey even when it doesn't make logical sense? Do you trust me enough to give when you feel like you need to receive? I nodded, understanding. And if they obey immediately, without negotiation, without delay, that's when the breakthrough comes, not necessarily in the way they expected, not necessarily in the timing they wanted, but it comes because they've proven that they trust my voice more than their circumstances. They've proven that they value obedience more than comfort. He stood again, and I could sense that our time was coming to an end. Give me another example, I said quickly. Help them understand what this might look like. Okay, he said. Let's say someone has been praying for restoration in a broken relationship. Maybe it's with a family member, maybe a former friend. They've been asking me to heal it, to fix it, to make it right. And then they feel a clear prompting to reach out to that person, to send a text, make a phone call, write a letter, to initiate reconciliation. But their pride says, I'm not the one who should reach out. They're the one who hurt me. They should come to me first. Or their fear says, what if they reject me? What if they don't respond? What if it makes things worse? And so they hesitate, they delay, they scroll past the prompting. But if they obey immediately, if they send that text right when they feel the prompting, if they make that call despite their fear, if they write that letter even though their pride is screaming at them not to, that's when I can move. That's when I can bring the healing they've been praying for. He paused, letting that sink in. Or here's another one. Someone's been asking me for clarity about their calling, about what they're supposed to do with their life, and then they feel a prompting to start something, to begin writing that book, to launch that ministry, to take that class, to apply for that position. But their insecurity says, I'm not qualified, I'm not ready, I don't have enough experience. So they wait, they prepare, they tell themselves they'll do it when they feel more ready. But that prompting, that's the test. That's me saying, I'm not asking you to be qualified. I'm asking you to be obedient. I'm not asking you to feel ready. I'm asking you to trust me. And if they'll just take that first step, if they'll just start despite their fear and insecurity, that's when I can begin to unfold the calling I've placed on their life. I was writing all this down in my mind, knowing I needed to remember every word. Lord, what about the people who are watching this and they don't feel like they're facing any big decision? What if they can't identify what the test is? He smiled. Then tell them to pay attention. Tell them to stay alert. Tell them that in the next 72 hours there will be a moment, maybe multiple moments, when they feel that prompting, that nudge, that knowing. It might be about something they think is small. It might be about something they've been avoiding. It might be about something they never expected. But when that moment comes, they'll know. My spirit will bear witness with their spirit. They'll feel that sense of, this is it. And that's when they need to act. Not tomorrow. Not after they've thought about it. Not after they've consulted with everyone they know. Right then. Immediately. The stars were starting to fade as dawn approached. I could see the sky beginning to lighten in the east, that deep blue turning to purple, then to pink. I have to go, Jesus said. But before I do, I want to pray for everyone who's watching this, everyone who's made it this far, everyone who didn't scroll past this message. He closed his eyes, and I felt the weight of his presence intensify. Father, I thank you for every person who's hearing these words right now. I thank you that they stopped scrolling. I thank you that they're paying attention. I thank you that your Spirit is speaking to them even as they watch or read this. I pray that in the next 72 hours you would make your voice unmistakably clear to them. I pray that when the test comes, when the moment of decision arrives, they would recognize it immediately. I pray that you would give them the courage to obey, the faith to trust, and the strength to act. I pray against every distraction that would try to pull their attention away. I pray against every voice that would try to drown out yours. I pray against every fear that would try to paralyze them. I pray against every excuse that would try to delay their obedience. And Father, I pray that on the other side of their obedience, they would experience breakthrough like they've never known. I pray that they would step into the fruitfulness you've been preparing for them. I pray that they would finally understand that the dormant season wasn't wasted, it was preparation. Let this be their moment. Let this be their turning point. Let this be the test they finally pass. In my name, amen. When he opened his eyes, they were shining with tears. I love them so much, Jonathan, more than they can possibly understand. That's why I'm being so direct. That's why I'm being so urgent, because I don't want them to miss this. I know, Lord, I said, my own voice breaking. I'll tell them. I'll make sure they understand. He started to fade then, but his voice remained clear. One more thing. Tell them that 72 hours from when they first started watching this video, mark it on their calendar. Because I want them to look back at that moment and see what I did. I want them to see how their immediate obedience opened doors they didn't even know existed. I want them to see the fruit that came from passing the test. And if they fail, I asked, if they don't obey, if they scroll past the prompting? His form was almost completely transparent now, but I could still see his face, still see the love in his eyes. Then tell them to come back to this message. Tell them to watch it again. Tell them that I'll give them another chance. Because I'm not done with them. I'm never done with them. But also tell them this, every time they fail a test, every time they choose comfort over obedience, it gets a little harder to hear my voice the next time. The numbness increases, the sensitivity decreases. So while there's always grace, while there's always another chance, there's also urgency, there's also now. And then he was gone, and I was alone on that porch, watching the sun rise over the dormant vineyard, knowing that everything had changed. I'm sitting here now December 5th recording this message, and I'm still processing everything he showed me over these 3 nights. And I'm looking at you, yes, you, the person who's made it all the way to the end of this message, and I need you to understand something. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. The fact that you're here right now, the fact that you didn't scroll past this video, the fact that you've invested this time to hear what Jesus wanted to say, that's all him. That's his spirit drawing you. That's his voice calling you. And somewhere in the next 72 hours, maybe it's already started, you're going to face a decision. You're going to feel a prompting. You're going to have a moment where you know, deep in your spirit, that God is asking you to do something. And in that moment, you're going to have a choice. You can dismiss it, you can scroll past it, you can tell yourself you'll deal with it later, or you can remember this message. You can remember that Jesus said your breakthrough is on the other side of your obedience. You can remember that he believes in you, that he's prepared you for this, that he's not setting you up to fail, and you can say yes, immediately, without negotiation, without delay. I want you to do something for me right now. I want you to take out your phone. I know, ironic, right? And I want you to set a reminder for 72 hours from now. And in that reminder, I want you to write, what did God ask me to do? Did I obey? Because I'm telling you, when you look back at that reminder in 3 days, you're going to see that something shifted. You're going to see that God was faithful to his word. You're going to see that the test came exactly like he said it would. And I'm praying, I'm believing that you're going to be able to say, I passed. I heard his voice, and I obeyed immediately, and everything changed. Now I need to know, are you with me? Are you ready to stop scrolling past God's voice? Are you ready to step out of the dormant season and into breakthrough? If you are, I want you to do 3 things right now. First, leave a comment and tell me what you're praying for. Tell me what area of your life you're believing for breakthrough in. I want to pray with you by name. I want to stand in agreement with you that God is going to move in the next 72 hours. Second, if you're a true believer in Christ, if you've genuinely repented, if you have saving faith, if you're truly following Jesus, subscribe to this channel. I need to know there are people out there who are awake, who are watching, who are ready to hear what God is saying in this hour. And third, share this message, because I guarantee you there's someone in your life who needs to hear this right now. There's someone who's in their dormant season, who's been scrolling past God's voice, who's about to face a test and doesn't even know it. Send this to them, share it on your page, get it in front of as many people as possible. Because here's what I know, Jesus didn't give me this message just for you. He gave it for everyone you're connected to. He gave it for your family, your friends, your coworkers, your church members. He gave it for that person who keeps coming to your mind right now. You know who I'm talking about. The one whose face just popped into your head. That's the Holy Spirit telling you they need to hear this. So share it. Don't wait. Don't think about it. Just do it. Because their 72 hours might be starting right now, and this message might be the thing that helps them recognize God's voice when the test comes. I want to tell you what happened this morning, just a few hours ago. I was sitting on that same porch, drinking my coffee, watching the sun come up over the vineyard, and I felt the Lord speak to me one more time. Not a vision this time, just that still, small voice in my spirit. He said, "Jonathan, some of them are going to watch this entire message and still not obey. They're going to feel convicted. They're going to feel moved. They're going to even cry and say, 'Yes, Lord.' But when the moment comes, when the test arrives, they're going to hesitate. They're going to negotiate. They're going to delay, and they're going to miss it. And I'm not going to lie to you. That broke my heart, because I don't want that for you. I don't want you to be one of the people who hears the word but doesn't do it. I don't want you to be one of the ones who stays in the dormant section of the vineyard while breakthrough is just a few steps away. So I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. I need you to be real with yourself and with God right now. What's the thing that came to your mind while you were watching this? What's the prompting you felt? What's the decision you know God is asking you to make? You know what it is. You felt it. Maybe it came to you in the first part of this message. Maybe it was in the second part. Maybe it hit you just now. But you know, deep in your spirit, you know exactly what God is asking you to do. And here's my question. Are you going to do it? Not, are you going to think about it? Not, are you going to pray about it more? Not, are you going to wait for confirmation? Are you going to do it? Because here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. Sometimes I need to pray about it is just a spiritual sounding way of saying, I don't want to obey. Sometimes I need confirmation is just a way of delaying obedience. Sometimes I need to make sure it's really God is just fear dressed up in religious language. You know it's God. You know what He's asking. The question is whether you trust Him enough to obey. I'm going to tell you something personal. About 3 years ago, I felt God clearly tell me to reach out to someone I'd had a falling out with, someone who had hurt me deeply, and I knew it was God's voice. But I didn't obey immediately. I waited. I prayed about it more. I asked for confirmation. I talked to friends about it. I did everything except the one thing God asked me to do. And you know what happened? 6 months later, that person died. Suddenly. Unexpectedly. And I never got another chance to obey. I never got another chance to reconcile. I never got another chance to say what God had prompted me to say. I'm not telling you that to scare you. I'm telling you that because I don't want you to live with that kind of regret. I don't want you to look back 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 10 years from now, and realize that you missed your moment, that you had a chance to step into breakthrough and you chose comfort instead. The test is coming. Maybe it's already here, and when it comes, you're going to feel it, you're going to know, and in that moment, I need you to remember everything Jesus showed me over these 3 nights. Remember that He's been trying to get your attention for weeks, maybe months. Remember that the dormant season wasn't wasted, it was preparation. Remember that your breakthrough is on the other side of your obedience. Remember that He believes in you, that He's prepared you for this, that He's not setting you up to fail. And remember that immediate obedience is the key, not eventual obedience, not partial obedience, immediate obedience. I want to pray for you one more time before we end this, and I want you to receive this prayer. I want you to let these words sink deep into your spirit. Father, I thank you for every person who's made it to this point in the message. I thank you that they didn't scroll past it. I thank you that your Spirit kept their attention. I thank you that even now you're speaking to them about the decision they're about to face. Lord, I pray for supernatural courage. I pray that when the test comes, when the moment of decision arrives, they would hear your voice clearly and obey immediately. I pray against every distraction, every excuse, every fear that would try to delay their obedience. I pray that 72 hours from now, they would be able to look back and say, I did it. I heard God's voice and I obeyed, and everything changed. I pray for breakthrough in their finances, in their relationships, in their health, in their calling, in every area where they've been stuck in a dormant season. I pray that their immediate obedience would open doors they didn't even know existed. And Lord, I pray that this wouldn't just be a one-time thing. I pray that this would be the beginning of a lifestyle of immediate obedience. I pray that they would become so sensitive to your voice, so quick to respond to your promptings, that they would walk in a level of fruitfulness they've never experienced before. Protect them in these next 72 hours. Keep their hearts soft. Keep their spirits alert. Keep their minds focused on you. And when the moment comes, give them the grace to say yes. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, I want to leave you with this final image. Remember that ancient vine Jesus showed me, the one that was so fruitful, so abundant, so loaded with grapes that its branches were bending under the weight. That's what he wants for you. That's the level of fruitfulness he's calling you to. And it starts with passing this test. It starts with immediate obedience in the next 72 hours. So here's what I want you to do. Right now, before you click away from this video, before you move on to the next thing, I want you to speak out loud. I want you to say, Lord, I'm listening. I'm paying attention. When the test comes, when I feel your prompting, I will obey immediately. I will not negotiate. I will not delay. I will trust you enough to do what you're asking, even if I'm scared, even if it doesn't make sense, even if no one else understands. I choose obedience over comfort. I choose breakthrough over the dormant season. I choose your voice over the scroll. Say it out loud. Let the words come out of your mouth. Let them become a declaration, a commitment, a covenant between you and God. And then, in the next 72 hours, when that moment comes, and it will come, remember this message. Remember what Jesus showed me. Remember that he's been preparing you for this. Remember that your breakthrough is waiting on the other side of your obedience. And then do it, whatever he's asking, however scary it is, however much it costs, however little sense it makes to your natural mind. Just do it, immediately. Because I'm telling you, 3 days from now, you're going to look back at this moment and realize it was a turning point. You're going to see that everything changed because you finally stopped scrolling past God's voice and started obeying it. I'm believing that for you. I'm praying that for you. I'm standing in agreement with you that God is about to do something incredible in your life. Now go. Your 72 hours has started. The test is coming, and I know that you're going to pass it. Don't forget to comment below and tell me what you're praying for. Don't forget to subscribe if you're a true believer who's ready to hear what God is saying in this hour. And don't forget to share this message with that person who came to your mind. This is Jonathan Roumie, and I'm telling you, Jesus says stop scrolling. He has a message for you, and you just heard it. Now it's time to obey. The vineyard is waiting. The fruit is ready. The breakthrough is prepared. All that's left is your yes.